Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a massive question right at the heart of the American economy. Is Wall Street literally buying up the dream of homeownership? And more importantly, what is Washington trying to do about it?
For generations, owning a home has been this cornerstone of American life. But as the spring home buying season heats up, a lot of people are finding that dream is getting way more expensive and a whole lot more competitive. The big question lawmakers are really grappling with is why?
And right here, we get to the core of the debate. A lot of politicians, like Republican Senator Josh Hawley, are pointing the finger at one specific group. They're arguing that huge investment firms are a major reason why regular families are being priced out of the market. So, what are the proposed solutions?
All right, first up is the most direct strategy being debated, just banning certain players from the game altogether.
The idea here is pretty straightforward. Lawmakers are basically asking, can the housing market ever really be fair for an average family when they have to compete with these massive investment funds that have, billions of dollars ready to go?
Now, when we say large investors, what does that actually mean? Well, legislation is trying to be super specific about this. One proposal, for instance, defines a large institutional investor as any company with at least $150 million in assets. So yeah, we're not talking about your local landlord here. We are talking about major financial players.
And what's really interesting here is that there isn't just one idea for a ban. You've got the American Homeownership Act, which tries to chip away at the financial incentives that benefit these big landlords. But then there's the bipartisan Homes for American Families Act. And this one goes a big step further. It aims to just directly block these firms from buying single-family homes at all. So you've got two different paths, but they're aiming at the exact same target. But, not everyone thinks a simple ban is the silver bullet. The argument from this side is that just targeting the buyers doesn't fix the underlying problems, like the fact that we have a serious housing shortage. And that leads to a much broader, more complex approach that's also gaining some steam.
And that brings us to the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. This one is a really big deal, not just because it's a bipartisan package from Senators Tim Scott and Elizabeth Warren, but because it tries to fix the housing market from a bunch of different directions at the same time. It's tackling both who can buy and how many homes are actually available to be bought in the first place.
So what does it actually do? Well, it attacks the problem with four main goals: cutting regulations to make building easier, lowering costs for everybody, increasing the total number of homes out there, and putting some new rules on corporate landlords. It's a much more comprehensive strategy. But even this broad approach has its critics. The National Association of Realtors, they're pretty much on board. The National Association of Home Builders, though, they're worried, specifically about a rule that would force build-to-rent investors to sell their properties within 7 years. They say that kind of uncertainty could actually scare off the very people we need to build more homes.
And that brings us to a third way of thinking about this whole problem. If you can't control who's buying, maybe you can control how much it costs to build new houses. And here we see two key proposals aiming to do just that. First, the Homeowner Energy Freedom Act. It targets building codes and energy regulations that its supporters say just drive up prices unnecessarily. And then, a separate bill wants to exempt home building materials from recent tariffs, tackling the rising cost of raw materials head-on.
So why does that tariff bill matter so much? Well, according to the National Association of Home Builders, a staggering 60% of builders have already seen their costs go up because of tariffs. And the crucial point here is that extra cost, it ultimately gets passed right down the line to the home buyer or the renter.
Okay, finally, let's look at a very specific, very targeted proposal that's designed to protect the most vulnerable homeowners out there.
Just picture this for a second. A community is absolutely devastated by a wildfire or a hurricane. People have lost everything. Well, lawmakers are arguing that in these moments of total chaos, large investment firms swoop in, making these lowball cash offers to families who are just desperate.
To stop this, Senator Adam Schiff has proposed a bill that specifically targets investors who own 75 or more homes. It would basically create a 6-month cooling-off period after a major disaster is declared, blocking these large investors from making offers and giving families some time, some breathing room to get back on their feet.
And if you're wondering just how big of a problem this is, take a look at this data. After major fires in California, investors bought a quarter, 1 in 4, of all the vacant lots sold in one of the hardest-hit neighborhoods. This chart really shows you just how quickly financial interests can move into a devastated area. So, to recap, we've basically seen 4 different philosophies at play here in Washington. You can ban large investors outright, you can pass broad, multi-pronged reforms, you can focus on making it cheaper to build new supply,
Or you can pass really targeted laws to prevent specific abuses. Each path has its own logic and, of course, its own supporters.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question. As lawmakers debate all these different strategies, from outright bans to targeted fixes, the future of the American housing market really hangs in the balance. The path they choose won't just impact Wall Street investors, it could redefine the dream of homeownership for millions of people.